All right, welcome into the show, everybody. My name is Andrew Caraway. I'm joined here by my broadcast partner, Jermaine Houston. Today,
Hold on, everybody.
we're going to go over the 2A, 4A top 10s that we made for our show, as well as the Region 2 Quad A and Region 5 AA rankings that we did. Reason we chose these two classifications is those are the classifications that our three teams here locally play in. So we're going to focus on that, and I think you guys will enjoy what we got so far. Me and Jermaine worked on separate top tens, separate region predictions. So we'll see how it all shakes out, and hopefully have a lot of fun on the way. So now, Jermaine, I'm gonna give you a warning. Once we release this, no matter what you do, some team is gonna say, "Oh, you're sleeping on us. Oh, we're not getting respect. Oh, we're not getting this," which is my favorite part about top tens because none of this is personal. It's just for fun. So
Exactly.
get riled up too much about this.
We got some sleepers there for you, though. So, so just don't worry. If you're not in the top 10, you're one of our sleeper picks, then, don't take it too personal.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the man said.
Exactly. So, well, Jermaine, I figured we'd start in 4A GHSA. We got a little graphic right here. We'll pull up for you guys. If everybody can see it. Jermaine, are you good? Can you see everything?
I can see everything.
Okay. So, right here we've got the 4A top 10. On the left side is my rankings. On the right side is Jermaine's. Jermaine, start with you, man. What we got a lot of the same teams, but what made you pick this top 10 in this order?
I started looking at the playoffs and how deep they were in the playoffs last year. And then I started looking at some of the rosters for this year, for these teams as well. Like Jefferson, they went down from 4A to 3A 2 years in that mid cycle turnaround. Now they're back in 4A. They had a deep run last year. I feel like Jefferson, that top 5, I felt like 1 through 5 for me. That's why I thought those things should be at. Westover, I think could be a state championship contender all the way through. The way that they played last year was just unbelievable. Marist is always going to be Marist. They're part of that Holy Trinity with St. Pius and Blessed Trinity. So to me, you can't go wrong with Marist. You can't go wrong with Westover. Bainbridge coming down from 5A to 4A, winning the state championship 2 years ago. You can't sleep on Bainbridge. Carver Columbus, they had a deep run last year, losing in the losing third round last year. And that team is still going to be deep, the deep team this year, coming down from 5A to 4A. Then, you look at 6 through 10 for me, Havel Charter coming up from 2A, and looking at what they've done, their body of work, the players that they've moved on to different schools. You can't go wrong with that. Cedar Town's moved over from Region 5 to Region 6, and made up a new Region 6. Hampton, of course, super talented team out of DeKalb County.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Clayton County. Stevenson, can't go wrong. Gartrell always has a great program. In North Oconee, they're starting to become the class of Oconee County in a sense. You put them in Prince Avenue Christian 1, 2, and then Oconee County. So I love to see that, as well as Athens Christian. So that's my top 10. That's why I have those top 10 the way that I have.
Yeah, I'm with you, but Marist, I think Marist is head and shoulders the best team, in my opinion. They had some big playoff wins, or big wins in the regular season against Lovett, Westminster, St. Pius, all traditional, powerhouse teams. Ended up losing in the quarterfinals to Oconee County, which I believe their quarterback was Brad Johnson's son, Mark Rick's nephew. So pretty good quarterback pedigree right there. Bainbridge went 7-4, but they had big wins against Cairo and Brooks County, who went to the state championship in 2A. They ended up losing in the first round to Griffin last year. But I think Bainbridge is really going to take that next step. They got a lot of talent down there. I truly feel like they're one of the most legit teams in 4A.
That's true.
Jefferson went 10-2, went to the quarterfinals last year. Hateville Charter went 10-2-1, went to the quarterfinals in 2A. We'll see how it translates to bigger ball. Hateville Charter's got a lot of athletes. I've seen them play in person, and the thing that moving up that I fear for them a little bit is line of scrimmage play. You got to have a rotation on line of scrimmage. You got to be stout up front. So we'll see if that carries over from AA to 4. I know teams like Buford in the past have moved up, from single A to double A, and you just can't stop them. So it may be a situation for Hateville Charter. I had Westover at 5 for same reasons you said. Carver Columbus, I think it's going to be a good ball team. 10-2, lost in the second round, 30-20 to Marist, which is our number 1 team. Lost a really good tailback in McCoy. We'll see what they do to prepare. But in Columbus, we know how this is. Outside of Central Phoenix City, Carver's probably the second best program as far as just pure talent.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Central Phoenix City upset Hoover on Friday night, if I'm not mistaken.
Lost by they were up early, and Hoover made
it. They did end up losing because I knew they were up late. So late in that game,
turnovers did them in, but it was a great football game to watch. Cedartown is obviously had an interesting season last year. I think a 5-6 record, but a lot of talents on that team, and I'm kind of
really is
some equity in learning from that talent. Learning from the trials and tribulations of last year, and they simply just don't play in that region again with Cartersville, Sandy Creek, teams like that. So,
they've moved over now to a region with Ridgeland and Pickens, so they're in Region 6 now, which still a good region, but will be nowhere near as tough as what they've been dealing with the last 6 years in Region 5.
In North Oconee, Stevenson for me, same reasons as you. And at 9, I've got Jenkins. Jenkins went 12-2 last year, went to the semifinals. Wouldn't be shocked if they make a run.
Wouldn't either.
But as far as our top 10s are concerned, would you feel comfortable saying that your top 4 is probably going to be your favorite to win state, or is this kind of just how you feel right now?
I would say between my top 4, probably my top 6, I can see making a run. North Oconee is one of those special cases where if they hit the box running and strike while the iron's hot, I think they can make a run. Stevenson, I don't know if they have the depth. Hateville Charter, don't know if they have the depth. But Hateville Charter, what they love to do, they love to come after the quarterback. They love to send stunts any time that they run their defense. They run a little bit of a hybrid 4-2-5, 3-3-5 type of deal. So their defense, on the back end, they probably can defend very well against the pass. They can defend well against the run, but they're very small, as evidenced by, if you remember Arden Key, when he played at Hateville Charter, that's pretty much the way that looks as well. Marist, like I said, knowing Marist the way that we do, in those times against Thomas County Central back in the early 2000s, when those semifinal games every year. So Marist has always had that tradition of being a great team, traditional powerhouse. Now I will give you some sleepers in 4A. I really think, and I'm not being a homer when I say this, I really think that Troop's going to be a sleeper.
That was going to be
Benedictine's going to be a sleeper coming up from 3A to 4A, and they're also in the same region as Jenkins. And I had Jenkins in my top 10 as well, but I pulled them out simply because I just didn't think. I thought that they were going to be a one-trick pony. But then going back and looking at their depth and everything, they're truly a dark horse. So and I would also say, those are my 3 dark horses. Benedictine, Jenkins, Troop.
Yeah, my two were Troop and Benedictine. I've seen Benedictine play in person only it was a couple years ago, but solid program. Private school too. Another thing they have going for them that a lot of people don't realize, I believe it's an all boys school.
Mm-hmm. Military school.
A lot different when you have 400, 500, 600 boys to pull from. Whereas a team like Troop, for instance, I don't know how many students. I'm just going to throw out a number. Let's say they have 1,200 students. They may have 600
number right here.
To pull from or something.
Mm-hmm.
Same number, but it's a lot different when you're bringing in these kids for specific purposes. But
Right.
Benedictine, great football program, a lot of respect for what they do, and then Troop. And we'll talk about this more here as we get into region predictions. But I think they're going to go as far as their new quarterback takes them. A lot of talent, and like I said, we'll talk about it more here. We'll touch on it in a second. But I think once they figure out a quarterback, I think that's when we'll figure out where this season will go for Troop. But yeah, this is the top 10, Class 4A, GHSA, Jermaine with Marist, Westover, Bainbridge, Carver, Columbus, Jefferson, Hateville Charter, Cedartown, Hampton, Stevenson, North Oconee. My top 10 is Marist, Bainbridge, Jefferson, Hateville Charter, Westover, Carver, Columbus, Cedartown, North Oconee, Jenkins, and Stevenson. So pretty good top 10s. Like you said, 4A is one of those harder ones to predict. So once again, these are just our predictions. We're not saying that someone else can't come in here and make some noise. We're not saying that no one else is worthy of the top 10. These are just the teams that kind of stood out to us just from doing the research and everything. So we're excited to see where the season leads, and can't wait to see who gets into that championship game.
Really can't. I mean, you're looking at a lot of the teams from Region 1, a lot of teams from Region 5 and Region 6, Region 7 as well. So I mean, we've got a potpourri, so to speak, of teams from around the state. So very, 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 very excited to see what's going to happen.
Absolutely. So, we'll jump in here to into Region 2 Quad A prediction. It's our local region here with Troop and LaGrange. As you see right here, we've got our rankings in front of us, kind of how we think the region's going to shape out this year. It's a region that's familiar, but it's a new region, especially for Troop and LaGrange. A lot of these teams were coming from playing other regions the past couple of years. Now they're back together.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a very familiar team out, maybe losing like a team like a Northside out of this group. But this used to be the old region right here that Troop and LaGrange played in for years. So what's your initial thoughts of this region and kind of how it's going to shape out, Jermaine?
Well, you got a lot of schools that moved up 1 and 2 classes in this region. So this is a built region, so to speak, where you almost had Troop and LaGrange. Should a Stars Mill would have stayed in 4A instead of petitioning to stay up in 5A, you would have saw them in that region. This region 2 here, this is a tough region because basketball-wise, baseball-wise, but football-wise, you're looking at the top 4, probably best 4 teams, in this area, in this region.
For basketball, for sure.
Yes, I mean, for sure. But, I mean, for football, it's a different kind of animal. And I think Carver, Troop, LaGrange, Hardaway, I think that's just the way it's going to go. Columbus, I don't know if this is the year for Columbus. I know they had a pretty decent year a couple years ago. I think they went 3-7 last year.
Yeah.
Was it 3-7 or 2-8?
I can look it up real quick. I don't think it was the best season. Let's see. We'll look it up right here. But yeah, like you said, especially with the basketball and everything, you got teams like Carver, Troop, LaGrange, Hardway, Columbus, Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
Really good basketball. Baseball-wise, you got obviously one of the best programs in the state, if not in the country, in Columbus. You've got LaGrange, who's got Coach Branch. They've won a state championship back in 2004. Really good program. Troop, under Coach Gardner for the longest time has been a great program. Now Coach Glisson is going to be double dipping between football and now he's the baseball coach too.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I know Coach Glisson was a really good baseball player at Manchester and I think in college too. So
he played in college.
So that'll be exciting to see. And then Hardway's kind of a roller coaster with baseball. Some years are really, really good. Some years they're not. And then we kind of know how Spencer, Jordan, Kendrick, and Carver will shape out baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. We spoke last year of Columbus actually went 1-9 last year in football.
I know it was a losing season. So
their last win was against Spencer, and they won by 6 points.
And I think Spencer made the playoffs in AA last year, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
They missed out on the playoffs with a 5. I think they went 5-5 last year.
Yep.
But just looking at the top 4, I was torn between Troop and Carver because Troop being battle tested the last 6 years in Region 5 with Cartersville, Cedartown, and those schools, I think they're battle tested for this region simply because you look at the pedigree that Carver's always had football wise, Jackson Saints, Deron Furr, Isaiah Crowell. I was kind of taken aback by that, and then seeing some of the kids that they had in the last couple of years, and seeing them bounce back and forth. I was kind of torn between the two. Then I was also kind of torn between LaGrange and Hardaway.
Mm-hmm. I had the same thoughts too.
So, even now, I'm still kind of torn between Troop and Carver. I'm also kind of torn between LaGrange and Hardaway. But Columbus and Shaw, I think they're going to be a toss-up. Who can win and win the games that they count most? So, if Coach oh my God! my train of thought just Napier. Coach Napier can get the wins that he's supposed to get. He'll get a 3 seed. If Hardaway gets wins that they're supposed to win with these lower half guys, they'll get a playoff spot. Troop and Carver, they're the favorites because they've got the talent. And like you said, Troop finds a quarterback. Troop's going to have a deep run no matter where they go.
Yeah. And for those who are listening to the podcast aren't watching on YouTube, Jermaine's Region 2 Quad A predictions. He's got Carver, Troop, LaGrange, Hardway as your 1 through 4, and then Columbus, Shaw, Spencer, Jordan, and Kendrick filling out the last couple spots. Mine was virtually the same. I had just flip-flopped Shaw and Columbus. I had Carver, Troop, LaGrange, Hardway, Shaw, Columbus, Spencer, Jordan, Kendrick. Just from Columbus going 1-9 last year, Shaw, just with the football pedigree that they have, I feel like they just got a little bit better talent. I'm not saying that they're going to, get a top 4 seed or anything, but that was just kind of, to me, that's tit for tat. It's just kind of a you can flip flop either one. But like you said, I think Carver today is the favorite in the region. I think they have all the athletes. I believe their quarterback's returning. I'm not 100% about that, but Carver out. So it's like we talked about, in our 4A poll, is outside of Central Phoenix City, Carver is the most loaded team in Muskogee County. I think Troop, if they can figure out between Teo Todd, Jeff Davis, I think they got a junior competing for that spot as well at quarterback. I'll grab his name here in a second, but I think it's like you said, if they can get a quarterback, if they can figure out who that is, and I don't think it really matters who that quarterback is, they just need to make a decision on who it's going to be. And Tyson Duncan is the junior quarterback, but I think they could have. I think Troop could have a big year. Obviously starting a true freshman at quarterback is scary, but you're not having to go play Cartersville. You're not having to go play Sandy Creek. You're not having to go play Cedartown. You're not having to go play, these teams that you were having to go play in this region last year. Let's be honest here. as a freshman quarterback, games against Kendrick, Jordan, Spencer, Columbus can be your best friend, where you can kind of play
as well.
You can play within the system, and not that you are allowed to turn the ball over, but man, if that's when you're going to make your mistakes, those will be the teams to make mistakes against because, and it's no disrespect. That's just historically speaking, if you look at those teams, football, outside of Spencer, most of those teams, don't put up a whole lot of a fight when you play them. So, so that'll be a big thing for Troop. They also have to replace running back Trey Williams, who is a very physical tailback. I enjoyed watching him play last year. He's now at Shorter University, so they'll have kind of a running back by committee. I think they had a guy from Manchester named Anthony Ferguson.
Yeah,
transfer in.
He was a 1,000-yard rusher last year at Manchester, so
and that's
he was on that final team at Manchester last year too. So
J.C. Copeland was telling us, the running back coach, was telling us about that kid when we had him on a few weeks ago. So.
Right.
So Troop, and here's the thing, Troop's strengths are going to be the defensive lines, the offensive lines, the linebackers, the secondary, receiving core. You're going to have some really talented guys. So, and in running back, you're going to have really good guys. So if you just can find the quarterback, if you can just find you a quarterback, you just operate within that system.
And here's the other thing. And here's the other thing to piggyback off what you just said as well. You look at Troop as a whole. A lot of those kids are juniors.
Yeah,
you may have a couple seniors in there, but that core team is all juniors. And like what we've been saying the last couple of weeks about Troop and LaGrange, in with the interviews that we've done with both JC and with JR, how that middle school class, how good they were in middle school, they're starting to cultivate themselves now, and they're going to be those teams that is going to be the ones that's going to carry those schools through the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. Is this a 2-year window for both? Well, we'll talk about Callaway in just a second. But is this a 2-year window for both Troop and Callaway? In that standpoint, or is this a 5-year window for Troop and Callaway at this point?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. A lot of talent coming up from the younger classifications from the 7th grade and 8th grade. So it'll be definitely exciting to watch. Another thing too, with Troop on the offensive line, with a kid like Royce White, who's going to Memphis, you have a Will Cooley, Braxton Truitt, some guys like that. And then on the linebacking core, AJ Tucker, great player. Jace Godwin, Sir Morgan in the secondary.
Yes.
They've got the playmakers. Marcavius Kelly at wide receiver. That dude is like a freight train. Huge. He should honestly be playing tight end.
Yes.
It is massive, but he's
4 feet.
It's like, you remember
Gio Pollard,
Alshon Jeffrey. He reminds me of Alshon Jeffrey.
And I'll give you another guy from. If you remember the Colquitt teams from the mid 2010s, they had a kid named Gio Pollard who went to South Carolina, who just had to give up football because of a neck injury.
Yep.
This past season. That's who he reminds me of. He's got the speed. He's got the acumen of a tight end, but he's got the speed of a receiver. Almost kind of like a Vernon Davis type of player.
Yeah.
If you look at it from that standpoint, very physical. But can get off and run the whole route tree if you let him, or if you make him. So.
Yeah, a lot of things to be excited about for Troop. We'll kind of wrap up 4A here. We'll talk about LaGrange. Want to touch on some things too with LaGrange. I'm putting a lot of stock in putting him 3 with the hire of Coach Napier. I think he's going to come in. I think offensively they'll be a little bit more potent than they've been. To be frank, they just haven't been good offensively for quite some time. And I think a lot of that has to do with injuries, bad luck. But I also just think that, in the region they were in, they were just overwhelmed by the other teams a lot of the times. They were in dogfights against teams like last year against like Central Carrollton, and then they got blown off the field by like a Cartersville. So, the biggest thing for them is I think the coaching change is going to be a very positive thing for LaGrange. I got them finishing 3rd in the region, going to the playoffs for the first time in quite some time. And I think a lot of that is going to be Coach Napier coming in, bringing a new – he comes from a winning culture. I mean, let's be honest here. Callaway's probably been the most consistent team in the last decade in the county as far as winning football games, putting points on the board. And I think he's going to do a really good job. I think a kid named Jalen Brown has the inside track to play quarterback for them. Calais Gibbs at running back, Coach Gibbs' son, which he's staying to play his senior year for a new staff. And what does that tell you about his character? His dad gets relieved of his duties as the coach, but he thought enough of his teammates bought into the new coaching staff coming in where he wanted to stay. It's human nature when stuff like that happens to be, if my dad got fired, I'd be like, man, I'm not going to play for you, because that's just human nature. You're loyal to your family. And I think that's awesome that he's staying. I have a lot of respect for Coach Gibbs. I have a lot of respect for Calais, and a whole bunch of respect for everyone over there. Coach Napier, he was my coach when I played. He coached both my brothers, and he may not know this, but he means a lot to me, and I wish him nothing but the best over there. I think everybody does. And we were sad to see him go, but really, really excited. He's earned this opportunity to be a head coach, and I think he's going to do a really good job. And I'll let you chime in here in a second here, Jermaine, and see what you think about this. I think the key to LaGrange here obviously is going to be kind of similar to Troop. Defensively, I think LaGrange is going to be sneaky good. I think they're going to have some really good players on that side of the ball. I think they're going to have some kids, especially in that secondary, a kid like Adrian Traylor, returning, who had a lot of interceptions for them last year. I think their secondary, I think linebackers, I think defensive line, solid as can be. I think receivers, they'll have some guys to make some plays. Offensive line may need some work here or there. Think it might be good. Biggest thing is if they can find a quarterback and protect him. The thing I saw last year is Charles Crawford was on his back all night long. And that kid took a beating every game. He kept getting up. He kept leading his team. There was times I was on the sideline going, I was legitimately concerned about Charles, because the beating he took last year, and he just kept getting up and getting up. So that's kind of my spiel on LaGrange is if they can protect the quarterback, give him time, if they can create some time for him through bootlegs, through play action, through the creativity of Coach Napier offensively, I think I have all the belief in the world they can be a playoff team.
I would agree with you 100%. And the reason why I agree with you is because I look at a Matt Napier, and you look at the pedigree he's come from. You look at where he's from in that Northwest Georgia corridor. You look at the families that have been up there, the family of coaches that are here, in that corridor, the Lambs, the Napiers, with his brother Billy, at the next level. So I mean, and you look at LaGrange from a whole traditionally, they've always had great defenses, led by their linebackers, which is the core strength of their defense this year, as it has been the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
It's just they haven't had the size, and they haven't had. I don't even want to call it. I don't want to say lack of talent, because that would be an insult. I would call it
just lack of consistency.
I would have said discipline, in some regards. But Coach Gibbs was turning that corner, and they were in some games, aside from the Sandy Creek and the Cartersville games, they were in those games late. They actually fought. The Troop game, they fought late, and they gave up a touchdown late, which made that game look a little bit different than what it really was. Troop struggled in that game last year.
Yeah, so that's what made me believe in LaGrange defensively is that game, and even the Callaway game. The Callaway game last year, got out of hand, but there was a couple of plays to be made in that game by LaGrange where if they make a catch here, make a block there, make a tackle, may have been a different kind of ball game. I don't think LaGrange would have won, but I do think the game could have been a lot closer than it was.
I think it probably would have had the same score of the LaGrange Troop of the Keller LaGrange game last year. It could have been a 55-45 game, because you had a couple touchdowns that were called back on holding calls for LaGrange. And then you had some that were dropped that could have went a long way. But
overthrows, some things.
yeah, overthrows. I mean, and then just timely defensive calls by Callaway won that game.
Mm-hmm.
And that game got away from them very early as well. So, I mean.
And you've got to think, too, when you've struggled to win games, and this sounds crazy to say about a team like LaGrange with the pedigree and the history. We all get it. The state championships, the national championships. But here's the thing. It's like what I've been saying for years. None of these kids were in a position to remember this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's 2020 when LaGrange won. 16-year-old now was born the last time LaGrange won a state championship.
Yeah.
That's no slight. That's the championship is the championship. It's an incredible accomplishment. But here's the thing is the last time LaGrange was relevant in football was 2009. 2009, maybe late 2010. But after that, these kids don't remember Trey Blackman. These kids don't remember, Blake Mitchell, Skylar Thornton, Bruce Thornton. We can go through all the names, all the players, DeMario Ford.
We played with and for and against.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I are of that age. I'm a little bit older than you.
I played against some of those teams.
I actually grew up with some of these guys, and actually played with some of these guys in the Red League, and also played against them when they were at Gardner Newman and at LaGrange. And man, I hated those guys, but I loved them all at the same time. I respected them all at the same time because the pedigree they came from, the coaching lineages that they came from. You can go back to the Coach Mills. His daughter married Coach Ridings. Rob Ridings, who was the AD at LaGrange at one point, who was a head coach at Troop at one point. He was my head coach. So you look at that tree. I mean, you bring it on down to the coach right before the coach that led him to the '91 national championship.
Coach Guthrie, you've got.
Yeah, I can never remember his name. Yeah. And then you look at him. You look at what Pardue had brought. He brought it up to the next level. So you got so much pedigree within that culture of LaGrange. It's not about just playing for LaGrange High School. It's about playing for the star.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they put it, and the tradition's there. They just got to get back to playing like that traditional teams, Well, and I wish that you would have an AD who was of that tradition. I wish you would have hired a guy like Pardue to be the AD, and then you would have had things like this happen, or a Branch who was a part of that. I mean, it just I don't know why you didn't go back to the roots when you had a chance to.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here too is a team like LaGrange has the pedigree of like Notre Dame, right? Like Alabama. Notre Dame went through it. They were one of the premier programs in the country. You didn't want to see Notre Dame on Saturday, right? Alabama, they went through dips. It took them getting new coaches. Brian Kelly coming to Notre Dame, bringing them back. Nick Saban coming to Alabama, bringing them back up. And it was a process. Nick Saban preaches the process, right? They didn't win a national champion in year one. They didn't do a national championship in year two, but year three. So I think that's kind of the thought process I'm going to have with LaGrange is I think by year three, especially when these younger kids are now sophomores, juniors, and this freshman class they've got now is now juniors and seniors. I think that's when you're going to start seeing LaGrange high football back to what everyone remembers it being. And it's like I've been saying for a while, last year they went and beat Heard County. I think I actually had a notification on Facebook. I think it was about a year ago today when that game happened, or a year ago yesterday, where they went on the road and beat the defending state 2-day champions 24-9 on the road, and huge celebration. And I remember a lot of people were like, whoa, why are you celebrating in the stands? You should always beat Heard County. Well, no. Okay. No. Because the thing is those kids didn't know how to win yet. And when they got a taste of success, it's important to let them celebrate. It's important to let them experience a positive reaction to the fruits of their labor. And, I thought it was a huge win. And It definitely was an important win last year, and I think LaGrange is going to be set up nicely with the region. I totally expect them to beat Kendrick and Jordan and Spencer, Columbus, Shaw and Hardway. I'm gonna call it a toss up just because I watched those two teams watched them play Shaw last year. We'll see what happens. I think LaGrange can win both those games, but it's not one I'm ready to pencil in and say, yeah, that's a win.
Give over under on wins for both Troop, LaGrange, and Carver.
I think Carver, I would expect them to win 8 to 9 games. I think the same. I think Troop, I have a lot of confidence they'll be in that 7 to 8 win area. And I think LaGrange would be very, very happy with a 7-3 season. I think if they went 7-3, I think that'd be a heck of a turnaround, playoff berth. Anything can happen once you get to the playoffs. Teams always get better as the season progresses. So let's just hope and pray we have a whole season. I don't want to talk about COVID. I'm over it. We all know all the stuff with COVID, but let's hope and pray we get a whole season. And before we dip into 2A, a couple of names to remember, for LaGrange, Jermaine, Adrian Traylor, wide receiver, defensive back, Montravius Martin, defensive back, wide receiver. He's going to be a really good player.
Running back going to be great too.
Jacquez Smith, outside linebacker, defensive end. He's going to be a really good player for LaGrange. So just some names to keep an eye on for the Rangers. So, but like you said, I think it's going to just be Coach Napier coming in, changing the culture. He preaches culture a lot, playing with the star, and he's got a really good coaching staff. I'm really good friends with a lot of those guys over there, and I'm rooting for them. Even me, as I'm a Callaway guy, I'm on the Callaway staff. I'm rooting for those guys. I hope they do well. I like to see my friends succeed. Same with Troop. And the only time you root against them is when you play them. So, yeah, I think we're pretty much of the same mindset here with Region 2 Quad A. It's Carver's region to lose. I think Troop is I'm not going to call them a dark horse. I think if they figure out quarterback, they will have a lot to say about that region championship, and I think LaGrange is in the same boat. Mm-hmm. They have to find a quarterback, but they also have to regain that swagger and that confidence. I just don't know if that can happen in 1 year. I think that's a process where I think by year 3, just like Nick Saban at Alabama, just like Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, a lot of those teams in year 3, year 2 or 3, you make that jump. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on for sure.
Definitely.
So we'll go into Class 2A. Here's our top 10 in 2A. Jermaine, he's going with Callaway Cavaliers at number 1, Swainsboro, Rabun County, Bleckley County, Union County, Thomasville, Jefferson County, Pepperell, Bremen, and Fitzgerald to round out his top 10. Mine's got a lot of the same teams. A lot of people, especially with, once again, me being a Callaway guy, are going to be shocked probably by my top 10, but I've got Thomasville 1, Rabun County 2, Callaway 3, Swainsboro 4, Union County 5, and then I've got Fitzgerald, Bleckley, Pepperell, Bremen, and Jefferson rounding out my top 10. And we'll talk about our dark horses and honorable mentions down. But Jermaine, kind of break down your 2A top 10. What was the deciding factor for you with your top 10?
Callaway. I'm just going to put it out there. Callaway, you got four consecutive quarterfinal appearances, 2 semifinal appearances in a row. You've won over 80 games in the last 6 years. You've got a coach who has done it similarly to a coach like a Franklin Stevens at McEachin, who's won over 100 games in as many games as Coach Wiggins has. Consistency across the board, the playmakers across the board, and I look at this and I see a lot of youth on the Callaway team this year. But like you told me in previous years, like you told me previously, there's a lot coming back as well. So that's why I went with Callaway 1. Swainsboro, the way that they ended the year last year, in their playoff run, I could not.
Bad loss to Hateville Charter. Oof.
Yes, it was a bad loss.
And I think they gave up 70 in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah, 70 to 35 or something like that. But it was ugly. But the way that they finished the year before that leading up, I felt like they were the best team. Raven County's probably got the best quarterback in the state. Blakely County probably got one of the best coaches in AA, not named Pete Wiggins in Von Lassiter. And the job that he's done coming from Houston County to Blakely County, which is his alma mater.
It is.
And he's done such a great job at Blakely County, getting those kids to buy into the program, just like he did at Houston County. This is a team that can make a big run as well. Union County, they've got a great quarterback. They've got a great running back. They've got the defense that is unlike any defense I've seen in a long time. Thomasville is that traditional Thomasville team where they're gonna line up and they're gonna hit you in the mouth. Jeffco, they're gonna throw the ball all over the place and then they're gonna run the ball down your throat. Pepperell's always gonna be Pepperell. Bremen's always gonna be Bremen. Fitzgerald, even with the loss of Jason Strickland to Ware County 2 years ago, even when they lost James Graham to graduation and to Georgia Tech, Fitzgerald still has done the things that they've done, and it's scary of what could be for this top 10. This is a really good deep top 10. I mean, this is pretty much the same top 10 that Matt Stewart had.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference between my top 10 and his top 10, 4 and 5. I've got him flip-flop. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way, it was a solid 10, and that's the way I felt about it as well.
Yeah, and I feel like truly AA is wide open. I feel like anybody on this list right here could win a state championship. I'm not sure you can say that in other divisions. Maybe single A public, with Brooks County, Dublin, Irwin County, teams like that. But, I had Thomasville at number 1 for me. They went 9-5, went to the semis. Last year they beat Rabun County. I just feel like they had a lot coming back. A lot of talent on that team. And I kind of saw it the same way as like Callaway last year. A lot of talent on that team coming back. And that's why I gave them the nod at number 1. It was not because I'm trying to not put Callaway 1 because I work, I'm on the staff and I do their radio stuff and I'm not trying to motivate us or whatever here. I'm objectively as a member of the media too, looking at it and saying, Thomasville's got a lot of talent coming back. Really good team. Those South Georgia teams don't play,
Right.
Rabun County, Gunner Stockton just committed to South Carolina. Rabun, do they play in the toughest region? No, they don't. But
no, man.
When you have a quarterback, Callaway has seen it with Demetrius Coleman. When you have a quarterback that can make plays, a lot of times that's the difference. And they got to the quarterfinals last year. Raymond County did. Yeah, they lost to Thomasville in a pretty close game. I think it was a 2-possession game. But that, and that was also one of the reasons, too, I voted Thomasville 1 was just to hold Gunner Stockton like that. And I just feel like that team's really good. Callaway at 3. I think Callaway's going to be really good on defense. A lot of guys coming back. Guys like Anthony Elliott at defensive end and Jabari Smith at defensive tackle. Guys in the secondary like Jameer Jones, Marcus Mormon. Those guys will be missed, but R.J. Williams at linebacker. But they have so many guys that played a lot last year because of the injuries. And a lot of people don't know this, or ask questions. Last year against Brooks County, Callaway didn't have Anthony Elliott. He was out with an injury. Jabari Smith was playing on one foot. He was hurt bad. R.J. Williams was suffering from injuries last year. Those are probably your more physical players on defense. And when you're not 100%, it's going to be hard to stop the run. But the good thing is you had younger guys step in and contribute, guys who I think are going to be key this year, like a LaQuiz Gilbert at linebacker. I think he's going to be really, really key for Callaway. Keyshawn Suggs at defensive end. I think he's going to really be an important piece. We're going to really need him to step up and fill in that role, as a pass rusher. Defensive secondary, I think, is going to be with Jalen Shepard and Osei Rivas back there. There's a reason Callaway could play a lot of cover 1 and cover 0, because you have guys that can play man-to-man coverage. I haven't said a lot about offense. Well, let's talk about the offense real quick, and then we'll round out the top 10. Is you got a senior quarterback, Demetrius Coleman. So the one team in the county that doesn't have to replace quarterback Demetrius, but you're replacing your offensive coordinator, Matt Napier, now at LaGrange, like we talked about. You bring in Zach Giddens, former quarterback at LaGrange, Troy, West Georgia. His dad's a football coach. He's a football junkie. Zach's a great kid. I was really when Coach Wiggins told me that was who we were going to hire, I was really excited. And I've seen all the energy, the passion, the energy that Zach's brought into practice, and the kids love him. The coaching staff loves him. I think he's a great kid. Really excited to see what he does offensively. Obviously, you lose a guy like and we'll go in depth here too once we talk about the region. You lose a Tate Johnson, a Tank Bigsby. You lose those receivers offensively. So we'll dig into that once we get into the region here in a second. But those are some of the reasons I was a little hesitant to put them at first place. Swainsboro will be my fourth team. Went 8-4, second round of the playoffs last year. Really bad loss to Hateville, but overall solid season. Union County 10-2, lost to Metter last year in the second round. Fitzgerald, I think Fitzgerald can make some noise. I think they were really young last year. Callaway put 51 up on them last year. Really young football team. I have a lot of respect for Fitzgerald. That's a team we've played a couple times, and like I said, that South Georgia football is just a little different. Bleckley County got put out in the first round last year. That was a little bit wide. I didn't have them as high as you did. I guess I just maybe expected a little bit more, but I'm with you. Coach Lassiter, great coach. Coach Jake Fromm at Houston County, great man. They have a mountain of a left tackle over there, so really, really hope they can expand on and have a good season. Pepperell was number 8 for me. Pepperell went 9-3, second round loss to Thomasville. Seems like a lot of teams on this list lost to Thomasville last year. Bremen, I think Rooster Russell up there. Coach Russell does a great job at Bremen. Physical football team. They lost to Dublin in the second round of the playoffs. And then Jefferson County, number 10 for me, 9-3, lost to Douglas in the second round. So that was my top 10. So Jermaine, that was a long-winded top 10 for me. Let's before we jump into Region 5 AA, who are some dark horses in 2A for you? And I'll even let you – you're probably going to steal my thunder, but go ahead because I'll probably agree with you what you're about to say.
I'm going to go with Heard County. And I'm not even going to go with Heard County. I'm going to go with Heard County because they could be a top 10 team, but it's just like we talked about before. They go through this 5-year window where they're really good. They're good, but they're not good enough. Then the next year, they're bad. Then the next 3 years, they're really good. And this is that year where they were good, but they weren't good enough. Are they going to be bad this year, or is this the year that they're going to step up?
Mm-hmm.
That good
young last year. Good running back,
yeah.
Alex Boyd, number 10.
Right.
Really physical tailback. So I'm with you. I think that's a great call. And, I always laugh. This is me and Chris Willis up in the booth on Fridays. We always talk about, and we mean this as a term of endearment, we don't trust Coach Barron whatsoever. And what that means by that, I feel like Coach Barron will go for it on 4th and 50 from his own 1-yard line. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just the kind of coach he is. He is not afraid of the moment, and that's why I mean that as a compliment. Heard County, great pick. That was going to be one of mine. I've got 2. I've got Lovett and Pace Academy. I think especially Carrollton's quarterback just transferred over to Pace Academy. I think they're going to be a solid team. I think Lovett's going to be a solid team, and I think this top 10 may look a little different come November, December once these two teams get rolling. They're dropping down to AA. Don't be shocked if these two teams make a deep playoff run.
I would not be shocked, and we look at other teams in AA as well. New head coaches coming in. Coach Ironside at Worth County could be changing the culture at Worth County. Have not heard anything from Worth County since they went on that championship run. You have probably one of the best coaches and probably one of the true gentlemen of of high school football in Georgia in Shannon Jarvis, who's going over to Elbert County. And I think Elbert County can only get better with Shannon Jarvis at the helm. So you've got a lot of great coaches that's in Double A. That, I mean, wow. I mean, you got two coaches over 100 wins that built programs from the bottom, from the beginning, and Coach Ironside and Coach Jarvis, who are moving on, and just like Ironside said, it was that lure of South Georgia football that got him. That's the only why he left. He wanted to coach in South Georgia, and he got his chance. And Worth County is going to be a little bit of a tricky situation, but I think Worth County is going to be really good. I think Elbert County is going to be good. But am I going to name them dark horses? Of course not. I can't.
Not yet. But no, this is solid. And for those who don't know, Dublin and Brooks County dropped to single A. So that's crazy. And then you have Rockmart and Hateville Charter went up. Rockmart went to triple A, and Hateville Charter went to quad, who we just talked about. So the road has kind of been kind of muddied a little bit. A lot of teams are out of the way. But now I think because of that, you have a whole bunch of really good football teams who can all win a championship.
And, the one thing that I really hate that the GHSA did not do was when Wesleyan and Elka to go up to Double A.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both denied by the GHSA. You just pretty much just muddied the water even more in Double A, which I think if you would have added Wesleyan, you would have added Prince Avenue Christian, you would have added the Elkas, the Athens Academies to Double A. It would have created so much more parity than what you've done already with the regions that you have, with the schools that have dropped down and the schools that have gone up.
Yeah.
It had more parity. This top 10 could be a top 20 in that case, or a top 15.
Well, for sure. So it's going to be crazy to see what happens this season. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm excited to look. So we'll transition into Region 5 2A. Not a big region, but it is a very, very top-heavy region. In my opinion, with only 5 teams, could be one of the tougher regions in 2A. You've got perennial powers, Callaway, Bremen, and Hurd in the same region fighting for that one spot. And, we both have the exact same order of finish here. Callaway 1, Bremen 2, Hurd County 3, Temple 4, Harrelson 5. I'm willing to even go on a limb and say I'm willing to flip-flop Hurd and Bremen. Would not be shocked.
I was thinking the same thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alex Boyd's good running back. Hurd was young last year, really young, lost a lot of guys off that state championship team from 2018. So definitely a team to look out for now. Locally, so since this podcast is about our teams here, we'll focus on Callaway real quick before we wrap up the show. We talked about defensively all the talent coming back on defense. Offensively, we talked about the players leaving. Obviously, a Tank Bigsby, a Tate Johnson, a Jacob Freeman, a Nez Blunt, Jameer Jones, Marcus Mormon, guys like that, where a lot of teams that would do them in, right? Those are substantial losses right there. But you bring in a senior quarterback who's been starting for 3 years in Demetrius Coleman. You got an offensive line that you don't have a headliner like a Keandre Jones or a Tate Johnson, but I think collectively as a group, solid. Very solid line. I think they can get the job done. You have Charlie Dixon at running back, 6'3", 230 pounds, who has been waiting for his opportunity. He's been backing up Tank, his whole career. Been playing middle linebacker, very physical player. This is his time to shine. This is his last dance. And I think he's really going to have a huge senior season. You'll see, they'll have a rotation of tailbacks. Quiz Gilbert will get an opportunity. Q Redding, who's carried the ball for Callaway in the past at running back. And I think the biggest question mark we're all going to have is who's going to play receiver. Your only receiver that's back that had any playing time last year, substantial playing time, is Jalen Shepard, who's really going to be needed to play corner on defense. So last year he could operate and get 3 or 4 touches a game offensively and be okay. Now, do we see a situation where he's needing to get 10 or 15 touches offensively and still maintain on defense? And he returns kicks. He's going to probably be returning kickoffs, be an expectation for punts, punt return. He is the punter. So, I mean, Shepard is kind of the cog that makes the wheel go. And, but for the talent that has been lost, I think there's a lot of fun in seeing a lot of these younger guys that have waited their opportunity. And that's one thing that Coach Wiggins has done a great job over the past couple of years, is when games are out of hand, there's no need to go pad the stats for the starters. We're going to set the starters down. We're going to let the JV kids get in there, the younger guys, and we're going to get them playing time. And that's where you build quality depth, where you can always reload and not have to rebuild.
I agree 100%. And just piggybacking off of that, and just looking at Callaway as a whole, you see talent everywhere on the field. You see a lot of kids playing both ways. Not many kids playing both ways, but they can play on both sides of the ball if needed to, and they bought into that. And I love seeing guys like Anthony Blunt get their chance at the next level.
He's a prime example of someone who waited their opportunity and made a most of their senior season.
Right, and then you look at Charlie Dixon. When Tank got hurt in that Troop game, he took over that game, rushed almost 200 yards in that game. I think he had like 157, and then the next week he had like 217. The next week or something like that. I mean, I can't remember right off how it was, but I know he rushed over 200 yards in one game. And I can see the talent that Charlie Dixon had. I can see the talent that's behind every one of these guys, because all these guys have played. And like I was asking you before, who's going to be that guy that's going to be the next Tate Johnson? Who's going to be that guy who's going to be that next receiver? Who's going to be that guy that's going to be the next running back? You brought up Charlie Dixon, and then I went back and watched that Callaway Troop game, and fell in love with the guy. Just completely fell in love with the guy, because this guy is not only physical, he can put his foot in the turf, give you a cut. He can run over you. He can manhandle you.
Yeah. And is he Tank Bigsby? No. But who is? Tank's
right.
Those backs that you don't see those very often.
What's the generation guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're right. I think Charlie's going to be really important. I think at wide receiver, a guy I look forward to seeing grow and step up into his role is going to be Cameron Smith. I think he's going to be really vital down the stretch. I think he's got the size and the build at receiver. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of guys vying for those opportunities, and they're also learning a new offense, like I said, with Coach Giddens. But, everyone needs to remember, too, Coach Diallo Burks at wide receiver coach, has done a phenomenal job, and I think he's going to build a really good receiving core. And the beautiful thing is we got a really good defense, and we got a really good quarterback coming back. And so learning the new offense definitely won't be something that's, I think, going to be too challenging. So, but Jermaine, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. This was obviously our rankings. We'll kind of take some deep dives later this week into some other teams locally here. So once again, Region 5 AA final prediction for order of finish: Callaway, Bremen, Heard County, Temple, and Haralson County. So can't wait to get the season started. So for Jermaine Houston, I'm Andrew Caraway, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of the West Georgia Football Podcast. All right.